everybody? Welcome back. We are here live Q&A, NFL DFS picks for the Monday two-game showdown slate. Not showdown slate, classic slate. There's all kinds of slates tonight, but we're here to help you out. Lineup advice for FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. We have the Bills and the Titans. We also have the Vikings and the Eagles. This video is about 30 minutes long, and we're going to give you the high-level strategies that you need. It's been a long time since we've had a real large prize pool two-game slate, so we're going to review some strategies for that. And we'll dive into these four teams and talk about the picks that you need to get you to the top of those contest leaderboards. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder at Occupy Fantasy. If you're new or you forgot, you might not know who Jack is, but he's the creator of DFS Magic, which is the lineup builder that powers the lineup builder Occupy Fantasy. Jack, what's up, man? How's the first couple weeks been for you?
Hey, it's not too bad, man. Just taking it a little slower than normal, letting projections stabilize. But as usual with us, there's a short slate, and then I magically appear on the screen to talk to you about it. So definitely excited to get one of these early in the season.
That is not by accident. Again, for those who don't know, Jack has won a five-figure and close to six-figure GPP for a four-game slate, a three-game slate, a two-game slate, and a couple showdown slates. So he's the guy that we have to talk to when it comes to the shorter slates in NFL Classic. So happy to have you aboard, Jack. Guys, if you have questions, throw them in the live chat. Again, we'll be here till 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So any questions you have, we'll interrupt what we're doing, and we will answer those questions. So go ahead and throw them in. So Jack, let's get started, right? And I think we have to talk about the strategy first. So let me pull up this amazing graphic in a very professional production that we have here. I put together three tips that I think are integral to NFL short slate success. Put them on screen here. Why don't you walk me through them? You're the king of the short slate. So why don't you talk to me and tell the viewers what you think is different about short slates for lineup construction for FanDuel and DraftKings, and then really what's important.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is the game stacking, right? So you see right off the bat, instead of our normal 2 to 3 player stacks with no run back, one run back. Here you see 3 to 5 and 1 to 3, right? And that seems kind of crazy. But if you just think about it, if a game kind of goes off and the teams are scoring back and forth, it's very likely that one of the games is going to be optimal in the sense that whereas when you're playing a huge slate, it's just really hard for 6 players in the same game to outscore everyone. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, your lineups are going to look gross, right? I mean, that's kind of how this works. And then, why don't you talk about the ownership one? Because I wasn't exactly sure what that cutoff would be, but I knew it would have to be something, and that is another huge key here.
Yeah, so if you're playing these super stacks, right, that's going to get you past the uniqueness level for a vast majority of contests, right? If you super stack, not many people are doing them. We found that the field is not doing them as frequently as they should be. But you still have to. You can't just play all chalk, and you can't play 50K lineups because those will be found even in the smaller contests. So we usually use the cutoff point of 20% for showdown. We use it for these smaller slates as well. So as long as you have one player under 20% and you're super stacking and not spending your entire salary cap, that's generally enough. But Jack, there's also, on the flip side there's also lineups that are using too many of these trashy players, and there's just no reasonable way that they could win a large field GPP or a small field GPP if you're playing like 5 or 6 guys under 20%.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's because the field is smart, and there's not going to be that many cases where a backup running back's going to outscore the starter, or like a wide receiver 3 is going to outscore the wide receiver 1, right? But really what you're playing for is for one of those events to happen, and that's where you get that uniqueness, because like Brian said, the vast majority of the field is just going to jam all the salary in, and so yeah, kind of you can set rules around that, which I'm sure we'll get into, but you kind of want to look for at least one of those guys, but no more than 4, and you could even go less depending on who the player is, right? If it's like a 2% owned player, like we'll get into a couple examples of that tonight. You don't even have to get any crazier than that.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the difference between FanDuel and DraftKings, the maximum players you can play on FanDuel is 4. So that changes things quite a bit because Jack, on DraftKings, we've seen 6-man stacks win before, and I think if there is a slate where it could happen, it's tonight, where we play these like super bills, onslaughts, 6 bills in one lineups. That can definitely get there, but obviously on FanDuel you can't do that. Just 4 players as a maximum. Does that impact your strategy at all when you're playing over there?
Yeah, I think you hit it. I mean, there's less chances to be unique on FanDuel, so I think you really need to lean more into leaving a little bit of salary and some lower owned players. And I think we should touch on the salary for a moment. like you said, lineups that use the whole salary are going to get duplicated very heavily. Oftentimes, just like we see with Showdown, even a lineup with a low-owned player, if you use every dollar, it's very likely to be duplicated. So here, I think what I'm kind of looking at is that 1 to 2K range remaining, maybe 3K remaining. Probably don't want to go more than that, right? Because it kind of gets to your point of, hey, there's like too many junk players in this lineup. It's never going to win. It's amazing how many people just use every dollar no matter what.
Yeah. And again, we see this, like you said, we see this in Showdown, and it's like, oh my God, this lineup with a 1% player was duped 57 times. It's like, well, yeah, because every person who played that 1% player just jammed chalk around it, right? And obviously, all the lineups are going to look the same. So, how crazy is too crazy, though? And I guess the question is, if you're playing a 1K leftover lineup, a 2K leftover lineup, 2,500 on either site, what do you have to look for, whether you're using a builder or you're hand building? What do you have to look for to make sure, oh, this doesn't make sense when I'm leaving this much salary?
Yeah, I think you do it the way I do. You kind of look at who you could trade up to in that lineup and fit in the cap and say, can player one really outscore player two? And I think quarterback is an easy example, right? Can Jalen Hurts outscore Josh Allen? Absolutely, right? Both running quarterbacks, high upside. Can Ryan Tannehill outscore Josh Allen in this script with this Vegas environment? I would say no. You could build that way, right? Kirk Cousins is probably somewhere in the middle, but that's kind of one example of that kind of comparison.
That's a really good way to put it. Okay. And before we get into the picks here, again, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. We'll happily answer them. I know you guys have player questions or any strategy questions. Let us know. Jack, before we get into that, I do want to ask, because we haven't talked about it in a while, but what is your favorite short slate win that you've had in your memory?
Definitely the 2 gamer, because it was the most money, but also it was the Packers were the late game, and I was able to remain objective and not I'm a Packer. You guys may don't know I'm a huge Packer fan, so it's really tempting to build lineups that are very biased towards good Packers outcomes, right? But I remember just keeping my head out. I talked to you about it ahead of time and swapped off Devontae Adams for Aaron Jones and I think I was duped once. But anyway, it just seemed like it was a full range of building good lineups, being around for late swap, making a good decision. So yeah, definitely that was the best one.
Oh yeah, the most money certainly always helps, and that will make it the
but
most
also
memorable.
that. And that was a unique one that we won't have tonight, right? Is a lot of times we talk about late swapping, right, on these short slates, but we're not going to have that chance tonight, right? So we're going to kind of have to maybe you monitor for an hour, but probably what you build is what you're going to have.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to ask you about. I don't think we have enough time to process any information. Any information we do process probably isn't enough to help us make sound decisions in late swaps. So tonight we're building and running unless we get some crazy news before the Minnesota game. So, all right, I'm gonna hop over to let's go to FanDuel, I guess. And Jack, I think one of the biggest questions on the slate tonight is Gabe Davis, right? Injured his ankle in practice on Saturday. Somehow no one really has any information. I guess Mike Garafolo of NFL Network reported that it was a non-contact, tweaked it. He said more on the doubtful side of questionable, but the Bills team account tweeted out Gabe Davis's jersey today. Not that that's a major indication, but if he was definitely out, they would probably tell them, hey, don't tweet out his jersey. And we didn't see a practice squad elevation. Granted, they do have 6 active wide receivers on the roster, so they could easily activate Khalil Shakir. We'll know this for sure here in, 45 minutes or so. But let's go through the situations if he's in or if he's out, what we'd like to do with our lineup. So if he's in, right, and we get no clear word on whether he's active in quotes, limited, whatever it may be. Let's just say all 6 receivers are active. What are you thinking?
Well, I think I draw from things you write in the plug like this. I think if a guy is in, you just play him as if he's playing, and the reason would be a lot of times we do see ownership go low. He's not a volume dependent player. He's a big play guy, so he doesn't need a lot of touches to reach value. If he's in, I'm gonna play him as if he's healthy. What about you?
I think you have to, and we really don't have a choice, right? I think because Bismo, he writes the Monday night plugs now, and he's right. This early in the season, they're not going to play him unless he's close to healthy, right? And we're not going to really know for sure. But if he's in, I'm going to play him normally as well. Maybe that lowers his ownership some. Not sure. All right, let's say Gabe Davis is out. This is a question I think that a lot of people are considering, and what seems the most likely by the field's indication, I don't think is necessarily the most likely to happen as far as how snaps are split up, because Gabe Davis is 90% outside routes, right? We saw that in week 1. We've seen it in his entire career. And we have obviously Steph Diggs on the other side, Jack. And then we had last week Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder kind of splitting this slot role, the slot receiver role. I don't know if, and because we have it, and just listening to people, reading the industry, if Gabe's out, both Jamison Crowder and Isaiah McKenzie's ownership is going to increase, right? But that really doesn't really make that much sense. Are they going to run this like double slot wide receiver offense, or is it more likely that they put either Khalil Shakir or Jake Kumaro and it's a direct replacement instead of changing this entire offense? I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, you hit it right, and this is almost like a pet peeve of mine when I'm playing Showdown. You remember the Chargers game, right? Keenan Allen was out, and whose ownership skyrocketed? Josh Palmer. He's an outside receiver. It just doesn't make sense, right? It's like he was already going to play on the outside. This is the exact opposite situation where we have an outside receiver out. The slot receivers are going to increase in ownership, and sure, like if a worse player is playing on the outside, might the slot guy get some more looks? Okay, but it's probably not going to be proportionate with the skyrocketing owner. I mean, we could see Gabe Davis at 40%, 45 even percent. So to your point, I think guys like Kumaro and Shakir, if he's active, become really interesting. They fit the criteria of that trash player to get unique. You could end up with one of them with 70% snap share. And I don't see the field playing those guys, outside of a couple percent. What do you think?
I don't think so either. Everyone's going to play Crowder and McKenzie. And just looking back at preseason snaps, because that's the last time we've seen Kumaro play, we've seen Shakir play. Shakir was kind of this 50-50 role, similar to McKenzie a little bit. But he was playing 50% slot snaps. Kumaro in the preseason, 90% outside. His snap profile was basically identical to Gabe Davis's. So, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to play Kumaro, even if Gabe Davis is out. And even if Gabe Davis is in, if he's less than 100% or tweaks his ankle, maybe Kumaro is the guy that benefits. So, again, Kumaro likely takes a 0 or, maybe catches a pass or two. But, I mean, Jack, if we can get a guy at less than 5% ownership who's going to play potentially 70% of the snaps, so we got to look at that in high-risk contests.
Yeah, whether you're stacking Allen or it's a random one-off, I mean, that's exactly the kind of player you want here. So, absolutely.
For sure. On the other side here, for the Titans receivers, because I know everyone is racing to play Titans pass catchers in this game, right? We have, let's get Tennessee here. So, Robert Woods, number 1, Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook-Akina. Kyle Phillips, who led the league in rookie target share in week 1, is questionable. Sounds like he's going to play. They did elevate Josh Gordon from the practice squad. Any thoughts on this situation, how it plays out, who you're willing to play?
I wish I could just play none of them, but
but you have to.
Right? I know I can't do that. I think these guys for me, Brian, are just guys that I'm just gonna hold my nose and just kind of eat some, and I don't want to lose to it, but I don't really see any edge here. I'm not heavily stacking Ryan Tannehill, so I'm not looking at that angle. But I guess if you were to stack Ryan Tannehill, which maybe I think you tend to play all the quarterbacks, so what are your thoughts doing that with these guys?
So if I play Tannehill, like you said to the point, he's probably not going to be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. So I'm willing to use more salary with Tannehill. But that's also a function of ownership as well, right? If we play Tannehill, it's naturally going to be a lower owned lineup. So we can use a little more salary and be not as concerned with uniqueness. So if you play Tannehill, I would probably only double stack him because he can run too. And I'm not sure 4 Titans players get there, like 3 Titans pass catchers. But again, Burks, highly touted rookie receiver. Woods has performed in the past, didn't have a great week 1. Kyle Phillips, again, led the league in rookie target share in week 1. And Westbrook-Akina played a ton of snaps last week. So, I mean, these guys are going to be on the field. And when there's only 4 teams playing and there's guys on the field, they have a chance to be in the optimal lineup. So that's kind of my thinking. I think I wouldn't play like a 5-man Titan stack on DK. And even 4-man Titan stacks on FanDuel are a little crazy to me. So, but I would play one of these guys if I play Tannehill for sure.
Yeah, one follow-up question. I was just eyeballing the OF index. It looks like Woods has a pretty good edge on Phillips. I'm just curious if you think there's any big reason for that, or is it just kind of they're all kind of low and that's noisy?
Yeah, I think they're all kind of low and it's noisy. But again, the model is looking at over 100 different characteristics, and the goal of the model is to kind of figure out what all those mean together that a human probably couldn't figure out, right? So I don't know which one or a couple or 100 metrics are pointing in that way, but something saying Woods, who didn't have a great week one, is expected to be better this week. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Cool. I think that's more than enough time spent on Tennessee wide receivers. What do you think?
Yes, agree for sure. Minnesota and Philly, no real injuries to speak of, and so I want to talk to you about Josh Allen stacks, how we're playing them, how we're getting different. And again, if you guys have questions, go for it. If you just want to hear us keep talking, that's fine too. We have no issues with that. But again, if you have a question, I promise you, no question is dumb. If you have a question, I guarantee someone else is thinking that exact same thing. So feel free to ask it. We'll happily answer it in the chat. So in the daily plug, I'm not going to bring it up on screen here, Jack, but Bismo pointed out 3 different ways to get different tonight. And I want to get your thoughts on all 3 strategies. This applies to FanDuel and DraftKings. It's 4 high-risk contests. Well, I guess first of all, do you agree with the sentiment, Jack, that the field is going to jam in Josh Allen and just make it work?
I do to a large extent. I mean, you see the ownership we have. We project something like 40%. It could go to 45. I do think Hurts is going to get quite a bit just because he's a running quarterback, just put up a big week, and he's got a, we like to look at the chalkier websites, and he's got a pretty good point projection. But yeah, I think that is one way to just immediately kind of make yourself a little more unique is dump the and by the way, I have to mention it. Why does every 2-game slate have to be Josh Allen? I swear to God, like
every single one, man.
It's just ugh. But yeah, I agree with that one.
So thanks to Glenn in the chat. I just checked Twitter while you were talking, Jack. Gabe Davis is not expected to play tonight. Is not expected according to Jeremy Fowler. It's a legit reporter. So Gabe Davis
smiles
expected to be out, which is good for us if we're going to play that Kumaro Shakir angle. And again, they just have 5 active receivers. We expect Shakir. We expect Kumaro to play on the outside. So yeah, Jack, that just kind of solidifies what we were just talking about.
And I would play both, and to your point, both are probably likely to get zeros. But this is I would say this is a very good opportunity that you don't get on every 2-game slate. Is like very likely 80% snap share upside on a sub 5% player. I mean, with the highest team total on the slate, right? I mean, that's gold. That's just gold.
Key. Yeah, on the high. It's not like we're a Tennessee player. We're getting the Buffalo player with a 30-point team total here. So,
and in fact, you just asked me about Allen. I mean, the fact that this is now in play makes me like playing Allen a lot more, just because people aren't going to do this, right? I mean, this is your way to play Josh Allen and get unique for sure.
Yeah, and do you agree? So I don't know if you know much about Khalil Shakir. He was a rookie draft pick this year. A lot of Buffalo fans are excited about him. He wasn't active last week. Do you have a preference between the two, between he and Kumaro? I lean towards Kumaro, but I mean, I could easily see it being either guy or splitting even.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably just play both in mass entry. I mean, that's a tough call. With single entry, you're probably right. Go with the depth chart and the veteran. But I'll definitely would get some of both. But definitely like a max 1 kind of rule because they're playing for the same spot on the field basically, right?
Yep, exactly. Alex asks, regardless of the Davis situation, who are the guys we feel confident in for cash and head-to-heads? I know, Jack, that's not your forte. It's not my forte as well. But I would say guys that are just clearly underpriced, guys who are guaranteed to get the ball. I don't know if have you looked at any guys where you're like, okay, their ownership makes sense. I'm willing to play those guys.
Well, I mean, let's go to like we just talked. We were hating on Gabe Davis for high risk, but I mean that's a very clear low risk play. I think. I mean he's going to probably hit 40% as a clear value play. I mean I think that's an easy one.
You mean McKenzie? McKenzie or Gabe Davis?
Sorry, what did I say, Davis? Yeah, I meant McKenzie. Sorry. Yeah. We're looking at FanDuel still. I mean, it depends on the price. I would say just kind of go for a combination of those highest projected guys with like I would stick Josh Allen in. I would probably lean towards paying down on defense. Like honestly, like Allen is a turnover machine, and a lot of times playing a cheap defense against him can get you some points. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we're not super heavy on the low risk for 2 gamers.
It's a little tougher, right? Because the margins for error are a lot thinner. Whereas like you see a lot of mistakes from opposing DFS players when you play a full classic slate, or even a showdown, right? But when you get these 2 gamers, you don't see many mistakes, and even if there are mistakes, there's only 1 or 2. It's hard to capitalize on those.
Yeah, I certainly FanDuel again. Like Devin Singletary is really cheap for starting running back. That's a touchdown favorite. Um, guys like that to try to do studs and then some of those obvious value plays.
For sure. That makes sense. Let's see here. Uh, totally not the FBI says, what's your exposure to Derrick Henry, and who's your biggest high dollar fade tonight?
I will eat Henry. Let me look at what I have him at right now. I have 30, which this build was when I wasn't stacking Buffalo, which, like I just said, I may be reevaluating based on this receiver situation. But I certainly wouldn't want to go zero on Derrick Henry. I think we project him at 60%. It may be a little high because he's expensive, but I would probably go at least half. Is that kind of your general rule too? Is kind of go at least half the field on some of these guys?
Yeah.
How are you playing him tonight?
Yeah, some of these studs, for these slates, I'm looking to get different at these lower spots and in my construction. And this is something I've thought about more lately too. And it stems from MMA, it stems from all these other contests, all these other sports where it's pretty projectable, at least from like running backs and receivers and target shares. I'm willing to play these guys, right? Jefferson, I'm not going to play 0% Justin Jefferson or 0% Derrick Henry. I'll let my lineup get different in the construction aspect or whichever 1 to 3 cheap players I play. So,
all right, what do you got? Biggest high dollar fade?
If I had to face, I mean, it's the McKenzie Crowder situation. Just hope they split like they did in week 1. They cannibalize each other's production, and they don't end up in the optimal lineup. I think I'm totally fine playing that angle and going way under those guys.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was just looking at. I'm guessing some of these secondary receivers are going to go really over, like Thielen and Devontae Smith. I mean, I think they have big upside, but their price, at least on FanDuel, their price point is kind of ridiculously cheap, and that's going to just make their ownership go way up. So kind of to your point, jamming some studs and trying to find a trashy guy to round that out, maybe a better approach if you're looking to get unique. So, I don't know that I would fade any of the studs tonight. They're all sound good plays. Yeah, I think some of those mid-priced kind of 40% guys are some people that I might be brave on if I was trying to fade someone.
For sure. Let me see here. Kendrick says, do you think Westbrook is a good play? And that's Nick Westbrook Akina. I think we agree, Jack, that he's not a good play from a sense of like points per dollar or like actual projection, but probably good in large field because he should be out there a lot and no one's going to play him.
Yeah, same idea. Just hold your nose and use some. He's kind of a down the field guy too. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Wait, who?
Keena?
Yeah, he can get some shots downfield for sure. So
I thought when Julio was out and Brown was out, he had a couple random like big games.
Yeah. He definitely gets targeted down the field when he gets those targets. So Daniel says 25 max entry, 25 Tannehill stacks for FanDuel. How do you feel about that, Jack?
A little too crazy for me. I would probably at least play all 4 if you want to play some Tannehill, but yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's fair. Hawk Dark, and I like this a call. He says KJ Osborne as a pivot off of McKenzie. I really like that. Right. Yeah. Similar. Honestly, Osborne will play more snaps, I think, unless McKenzie has just run away with this job in the last 7 days, which I don't think he has. Osborne's a great pivot, cheaper on FanDuel even, in a more competitive game environment.
Yeah, that's a great one. Absolutely. Why not?
All right, so let's go back here again. If you guys have questions, it is 5:23. We'll be here till 5:30, maybe a little bit longer if you have more questions. But I want to talk about the 3 angles that Bismo pointed out in the daily plug. Which again, if you haven't read yet, it's linked in the description. We talk about our lineup construction tips for all different contest types on FanDuel and DraftKings for tonight's slate, our rankings, and just different thoughts on how this slate is shaped. So go read that after you finish watching this video. But so in the plug, Bismo highlights 3 strategies that he thinks that you can pivot off of the Josh Allen make it work strategy that the field is going to employ. So Jack, I'll name the 3 strategies and you just kind of give me the pros and cons or your thoughts on each one, right? The first one is do play Josh Allen and just completely mega stack, like you said, 4 on FanDuel, 5 and 6 on DraftKings, and just mega stack that game. And I would argue part of that strategy is adding some Tennessee run backs, which I think the field is probably not going to do as much. I think they're more willing to play, 3-0, 4-0 Josh Allen stacks.
Yeah, 100% agree. And that, when you just the kind of Vegas total gives that away, right? Tennessee easily has the lowest total on the slate. That means projections are going to be the lowest, which means people are not going to play those guys. So yeah, forcing Tennessee run backs in those game stacks is a great way to get unique with them.
Okay, the other alternative is mega stacking this other game, Minnesota and Philly, which again should be more competitive, actually has a higher total, right? And playing Cousins mega stacks, playing Jalen Hurts mega stacks. I think this is my preferred approach of all the three approaches. And you're not really sacrificing much upside considering these two offenses. It's not like we're getting like a Cleveland Jets game on the other side where we're like, Jesus Christ, we have to play these two stacks. This, I'm actually excited to play these other stacks, and would not surprise me if they outscore Josh Allen.
I agree. This is a really good slate. I mean, I think as soon as we saw this was on the slate, we got excited because the other game was actually good and have like real quarterbacks and receivers and stuff. So yeah, I agree. That's my preferred approach as well.
And then actually Ed in the chat actually brings up, which is the third point, and this is something I would be more willing to do in small field contests, less than 500 player GPPs, because we have seen this work on 2 game slates before. It's kind of this anti-correlated lineup, Jack, where you play whether it's Cousins or Hurts or even Tannehill, right? And you mega stack the Bills game or Bills players. You play 3 or 4 Bills, but because of the pricing and how it works out, Kirk Cousins or Jalen Hurts or Tannehill is actually the optimal quarterback over Josh Allen. So in hindsight, you see it when you're like, how the hell did that person play that lineup? But it's really a function of salary. Curious to get your take on that kind of construction and how it fits in.
I have never tried it. I have seen it win. I guess to me, it's kind of, if you have to go there, go there. I guess when I think about the opportunities we have with Buffalo to play Kumaro or Shakir, with the Vikings to play Osborne, with Philly, we haven't really talked about them yet, but the backup running backs are getting quite a bit of run. So I guess I see enough opportunity to get unique with the regular super stacking that I probably wouldn't go that way. But I mean, like you said, we've seen it win. I guess if you were going to do it, would you have any tips for people on like how to build those lineups or anything?
I think that you would have to get near the salary cap, but also just be aware that makes your lineup more likely to be duplicated. So you got to be near the salary cap, but also use probably one more lower owned player. Because if you just run projections and just jam in the optimal, I think you'll see a decent amount of Cousins Hurts lineups with 3 or 4 Bills players just because it works, right? So that's one way to play it. The other one is maybe you can leave salary. I would not be shocked, right, because of his rushing ability. Is Jalen Hurts is the optimal, and actually outscores Allen just on pure points with a couple rushing touchdowns, but all the Bills pass catchers end up in the optimal lineup. That's the one quarterback I'd be more willing to do it with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Related, what are your thoughts on including defense against quarterback as a way to get unique?
Yes, we actually seen this win multiple times. It's not just like some one-off occurrence because it's only 4 teams. A lot of times it's a function of salary, but you also have to think about it, right? If Kirk Cousins throws a pick 6, which he's known to do in primetime, right? Throws a pick 6, that gives 8 points to the Eagles defense, -1 for Cousins. Now Cousins gets the ball back immediately, and they're down 7 more points than they were when he just had the ball, right? So intuitively, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But if you think about it from a game script perspective, and you're rooting for a defensive touchdown, it actually makes a ton of sense, and I think is actually more likely than any other type of slate where that can happen.
Yeah, and particularly, Josh Allen is kind of a turnover sack machine, but he also scores a lot of points. So, like, especially that one to me is a good. I don't think it'll even be super unique, unfortunately, because they're just the cheapest defense. But I don't think you should avoid a lineup because you have to jam, a quarterback against a defense.
Absolutely.
Someone's asking about Minnesota tight ends. Irv Smith, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so he kind of split the routes with Johnny Munt last week. Johnny Munt came over from the Rams with Kevin O'Connell, knows the system, obviously. But we have to remember that Irv Smith was coming off a preseason thumb surgery, so not fully ramped up. I mean, generally you see a hand injury, the guy's good to go when he comes back as far as conditioning goes. So I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe they continue to split snaps. If one or the other is going to get more snaps, it is going to be Irv Smith because of just his standing in this offense. Honestly, both guys are playable. I would prefer Irv Smith because I think there's a chance his snaps increase this week based on another week out from his recovery. But, you're playing super large field contests. I have no problem punting with Johnny Munt. Hope he gets in the end zone.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I don't think either one should be super highly owned, but probably both in the category of sub 20 that you could use to get a little unique.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. We have another Gabe Davis, Kumaro, Shakir question. Let me answer this really quickly. Is Gabe Davis playing? No, he's expected to be out, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. And yes, we did say if you play Kumaro or Shakir, we would only play one, max of one of those guys. Odds are they're both not going to be on the field at the same time, at least not very often in this game. The last question, Jack, before we get out of here, someone had a question earlier about double running backs, right? Playing Sanders and Gainwell, playing Singletary and Moss, for instance, right? And we do have two split backfields, two studs, right? We have Cook and Henry, and then we have the Philly and Buffalo backfields. So thoughts on double running backing this type of slate?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely team dependent, right? I feel like I'm just thinking about the we do get some timeshares with these teams. Yeah, I could see it, especially like outside of a game stack. Like if I was playing an Allen game stack, would I play like two Philly running backs in a lineup? And if I was doing a bunch of lineups, sure, I probably wouldn't block it. It's not something I would like gravitate towards amazingly. I don't know how are you playing that?
I'm letting it run. I'm setting basically the kind of the rule I'm setting, Jack. I'm curious to get your thoughts. This one rule. This sounds like like an ad, right? This one rule will win you millions of dollars. No, like this rule I've been setting in the builder for small slates. I think makes a ton of sense. I'm curious to get your thoughts, right? It is max 2 of a team's quarterback, all of their running backs, and the opposing defense, right? So for instance, it would be max 2 of Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, Eagles defense. And this accomplishes a few things, right? One, it accomplishes no lineup's going to have Cousins, Cook, and Madison, because that doesn't make any sense. No lineup's going to have Cousins, Cook, and the opposing defense, because that's really hard to get. And no lineup's going to have both running backs plus the opposing defense, because I don't even know how that works. So that rule I found eliminates a lot of the trashy lineups that are never going to get there.
I love that. I actually have already been using max 2 of the quarterback and running backs, but adding the defense is perfect. So I'm going to copy you on that one. I think that's a great way to do that, and it just takes all the thinking out. You just let the builder figure it out.
Exactly. So I'll take my commission check in the mail if you hit tonight. So
sounds good.
All right. Final question here. We have two questions actually. Mr. Torian says, outside of Josh Allen, who's the stud that we like most tonight? I'm gonna flip it because I think this is the best way to answer this question, Jack. Which stud would you be most scared of having 0% exposure to tonight?
I'm gonna say Cook.
Okay, I would say Jefferson. I would be absolutely terrified after seeing what he did in Week 1 in this new offensive system. I think I would say Jefferson. But you're saying Minnesota. We're both saying Minnesota skill position players, which should tell you something, right? So.
Yeah, I mean he would be number 2 for sure. Certainly would not want to get rid of either of those guys.
Cool. All right, it is 5:32. It's time for us to get out of here. We got to build our own lineups, and you guys need time to read the plug and build your own lineups to use the builder itself. So let's get out of here. Before we do, Jack, any final advice for whether it's 2-game slates in general or this specific slate?
Just don't worry if your lineups look gross. They're supposed to. It's a 2-game slate.
And maximum stack. Maximum stack. That is my
maximum stack.
Okay. All right. So if you like what you saw here, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Get notified when we go live, uploading new videos. Normally for showdown slates, we'll have slate preview videos recorded the morning of. We have the live Q&As on Saturdays for main slates. Chris, our NFL writer, puts out a main slate preview, whether it's late Friday night or early Saturday morning here on YouTube. Anytime we have these kind of weird 2-game, 3-game types of short slates, I'll try to get Jack on here and we'll do these live Q&As because a lot of people seem to enjoy them. If you appreciate it, give us a thumbs up, helps the channel, lets us know that you like to see these videos. Any questions? It's too late now to ask on YouTube. Get in our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. The link is in the description. Ask us, come sweat out the games with us tonight. Happy to have you. So for Jack, you can find him. You can find his product on Twitter at DFS_magic_. It's the lineup builder at occupyfantasy, occupyfantasy.com/lineup builder to learn more. It's a tool that Jack built. I gave input. It's a tool we use, the only tool we use to build our DFS lineups to win literally 7 figures. So combined. So go check it out. You can follow me on Twitter at BrianJustFF. And remember, at occupyfantasy, occupyfantasy.com is where you can get the rest of the info for tonight's slate. Appreciate you listening. Jack, thanks for joining me, buddy. Appreciate it. And good luck to you tonight.
Good luck.
See you guys.